Welcome back, my fellow agents. It is I, X7, your amazing author and, your host of Zenorama, the podcast of Heroes and Monsters. Today, we're going to be talking about a seminal comic book in my life. And yes, it is from DC Comics. And yes, it was after I did get this. I obtained it, shall we say, after I got Avengers 70. But I was old enough to realize my reading comprehension was getting better by then. And Avengers 70 had started to disintegrate because I read it to pieces, literally. So yes, today we are going to be talking about DC Comics 100-page super spectacular DC-6 is what it is, issue 6, starring the world's greatest superheroes. And I didn't even pay for it. It was 50 cents at the time, which was astronomical. Really, it was from June of 1971, so your humble agent would have been 6 when it came out, but probably was 7 and then 8 when it got liberated. Now, having said all that, let's talk about this comic book here. There's 2 versions we have, and we'll look at the original and then the second one. All right, here, stay tuned. So, this is the original version, but not my original version because that one also lost its covers and disintegrated. I bought this one. There's a fun story about this I'll talk about toward the end here. But this is an original. Smell that newsprint from 1971. You can see that it's been read and loved and repaired with tape. I got this from Comic Book College. Lovely Neil Adams cover, which is what you see, though this is the Wonder Woman of Earth 2 instead of the powerless Diana Prince of Earth 1. I mean, talk about continuity there, right? And I mean, Johnny Quick wasn't even a member of the Justice Society or the Justice League, but there he is. So, all right. Now, this is the original, and we're not going to be showing you too much about it. But we are going to go to the facsimile edition that I got recently. It was first sold for $6.95. This was 50 cents. This one was first sold in 2004. And I don't know why they haven't reprinted it, but I mean they do have reprints. And it was $6.95 or $10.75 Canadian, eh? So those hosers really had to pay for it. Now, this cover is not quite as detailed, a little murkier now, but it's on a little nicer paper. But the reprinting is really well done. They did do some recoloring on it. The 100-page Super Spectaculars ran for a couple of years, 71 to 73, and then they just started, instead of being separate from the lines, they'd have the Superman or the Superboy or Batman family, Superman, etc. Started with issue 4 for some odd reason, and then went clear to issue 22, which is the Flash, and we'll probably be talking about that because I still have it, but no facsimile edition there. The great thing about these is you got stories generally from the 50s, 40s, and 50s, sometimes the 60s. In this one, I do have notes that there are, aside from the team-up, Justice League 21 and 22 from August and September of 1963, you had a Spectre story, which was just weird to me. That one took a bit longer to understand. From More Fun number 55 from 1940, a Johnny Quick adventure from Adventure Comics, number 190 from 1953, which is unusual that he was still being published then. Vigilante from Action Comics number 146 from 1950. Unpublished Wildcat story. Sometimes this happened from the 40s, and it was published here for the first time. And then finally, Hawkman from The Brave and the Bold, 1961 from number 36. So they were all new to me. I mean, the best thing is that it was the Crisis on Earth 1 and Earth 2, the first team up. and everything is the same. There's except for the indica and the better printing, and I think they did recolor it a bit. But all the stories are the same. So I was grasping the concept of the multiverse, although not right away. But I remember trying to tell my cousins why there are two Flashes, two Green Lanterns, in Brightest Day and Blackest Night, who were using the same thing. Once again, the great Neil Adams cover is not as detailed. I don't know what happened there, but that's okay. And Martian Manhunter's, yes, he's in the story. I didn't, he was new to me. I knew who Batman was, knew who Superman was, might have known who Wonder Woman was, but everyone else was pretty new. So, and I really enjoyed reading except for the Vigilante because it was just a cowboy in modern time. I really should reread it. It's been that long. I like the Vig, but he has an issue, much like the Trinity and Aquaman and Green Arrow. He has a troubling history because was he from Earth One? Was he from Earth Two? He was part of the Seven Soldiers of Victory. Does he have a doppelganger? Because some did and some didn't, like the Spectre, which is also a very interesting story. Mostly, it had the Justice League and Justice Society, where you had, I don't even know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. You had 15 heroes going up against 6 supervillains who didn't even have henchmen. I felt a little sorry for him at the final battle because I did last 2 episodes, and you had and only the three doppelgangers, the 2 Atoms, the 2 Green Lanterns, and the 2 Flashes. We didn't see the Superman ever team up for many years, and I don't think the Batman ever teamed up. But which is sad. There is a team up of them in either Detective Comics, I think Detective Comics, which goes for a pretty penny. I did not read. I should have kept a better track of DC Comics when I was younger. Wish I had. But once again, it's just this glossy cover. And the other thing is that they have a checklist, which is astounding. A checklist. I'll show you the last page here because I don't know where it starts, but they have a checklist of superheroes at the time. Mr. Miracle. So obviously Jack Kirby showed up. Superman, Wonder Woman, a guide to all the people on there. You do have the Red Tornado, but you don't. Your second Red Tornado, but Ma Hunkel is not represented. She is mentioned, but here, yeah, Poison Ivy or not? That's not Poison Ivy. I think that's just Rose and the Thorn. Plastic Man is mentioned, even the new version and original version. So that's interesting. I mean, I went over this. I had most of it memorized. I enjoyed Wildcat taking on the original Huntress, and there's Hawkman with the Kubert art back then, and some things I didn't understand quite. It took me years, the Thanagarians and everything, because by issue 21 and 22 of the Justice League, the Hawkman hadn't been inducted, but the Atom was the first one, and Green Arrow. Well, the Green Arrow was the first. Was their 8th member. Snapper doesn't even appear in this, and then I think Atom was the second hero, and then Hawkman 8, 9, and 10. I think Hawkman was 10. And Ollie was very polite back then, not that goateed loudmouth that he became. Thank you, Fred Hembeck. So it's just, well, I remember it's been 55, 54, 53 years ago, over 50 years ago, when I first saw this at my grandmother's house in West Virginia. And maybe in 71, it appeared there. She had a stack of comic books, and I wish I'd have liberated all of them, but I was not a greedy child. But it was either in 72, maybe 73 in the summertime, where this mysteriously, my original copy, the one I liberated from there, somehow got put in my bag, my online bag, because you could bring that. It went home with me to to Colorado and never went back. I don't know how that happened. Just mysteriously fell in there. I don't even remember the other comic books. Probably a lot of funny animal stuff, Richie Riches, things I was not interested in. But this one, you better believe, with new heroes and and different heroes that look the same but weren't, and new heroes to me, that is. Except for I must have been reading comics by that. I mean, must have had some. I had Aquaman. I don't even know if he's in this story. Yeah, he has to be in this story. Adam and Aquaman. So I knew who he was. I mean, I'd seen his cartoons as well, and Batman, of course. So it was just highly influential on my love of teams. Just look at that. Dr. Fate intrigued me very much. This guy here, it looked like Batman, but was still a Robin, not in the comic book at the time. And that horrible. That's not the best suit. Starman wasn't, but I mean, and I wouldn't even know who. It's a good thing they had that guide on the back to tell you who it was. But it was, very informative. Some of the later 100-page super spectaculars did not. I mean, they published Sergeant Rock and Tarzan, none of whom I would have been that interested in. They did, and then they later just became 60 cents, and it was just a lot of fun. Yeah, I think I had the Flash DC-11. I bought a lot of them. So once I realized, well, when I was attending San Diego Comic Con, probably in '91 or '92, when I had moved to the big convention center in San Diego, I went around to some of the people and said, I'm looking for this comic book that was a reprint of the first two Justice League, Justice Society stories, and it had a bunch of other stories. And got to Comic Book College, which was out of Minnesota, I want to say, and they said, "Oh, it's this one, and we don't have it here." None of the other places had it. None of the other places had any of the 100-page super spectaculars because they were reprints. They couldn't get rid of them. So I was like, okay, well, and I got their cards, but I wasn't going to mail order back then. I mean, who knew how that would work? I got this from mycomicshop.com because I put it in my want list, and as soon as it showed up, I just hit the buy now button. But the next year I made a beeline to Comic Book College. They had it. I bought it, and that's the one I have. That's this one here. Came from them. It has been back. This one has been back to West Virginia and sat on my grandmother's porch because I wanted to do that again, just because. So yeah, boy, it's really shiny with the plastic, with it being bagged and boarded. But I went back, and everyone had copies of 100-page super spectacular. So I bought several. I still have some. Some I got rid of just because I hadn't had them originally, and now you can find them. But they have now skyrocketed in price to those original ones because they were such a great way to read stories. Some of them are all Superman. I have the all Superman Magic issue. Well, it's an all Superman one. I don't know if it's all about magic, but they was a great way to read stories you couldn't read before, and in a cheap for 50 cents or 60 cents. I bought several, and I still have several. I should really just get these added to my comic book collection list. But so I liberated it, and then I believe I was the cause of that. So if you can find one of these, they're great. I wish they do more facsimiles type like this, but they'd probably be $15 because they're 100 pages. Now they do count the cover and inside cover as, and back cover there as pages. But it doesn't matter. The stories are fun, and it was great to read, and I was very grateful to be able to liberate it and bring it home and give it a good home for the next 10 years till it fell apart, because it was newsprint and probably lasted longer in Colorado than it would in West Virginia here in Fossil Bed. So we're going to wrap things up now. So my fellow agents, that is a review of a wonderful comic book that I've maybe not the same copy I've had my entire life, but I've known about for a good chunk of it, well longer than most anyone would have thought possible. So, until our next assignment tomorrow, which will be a new cartoon edition, new cartoon reviews, a new cartoon series review. This is X7 signing off.